Hello, Dr. Mays. Lanice Block here. Just wanting to give you a overview of the brief history of ethnic studies in Minneapolis public schools. And my role, I was Minneapolis public schools content lead, K-12 social studies from 2011 until 2015, roughly about 4 years. During that time, when I initially started, my work primarily consisted of implementing the new social studies standards, which is where I met you. And then at that time, we had a process called focused instruction that was implemented by the then Chief Academic Officer Emily Pitts, and the work of that was primarily what I did. There was an incident that happened at Washburn High School that was a hanging of a black baby doll. And the then superintendent, Dr. Bernadette Johnson, came to talk about, was on TV and talked about, I was at home watching and talked about the social studies curriculum needing to be adjusted. So then there were some conversations and talks about what could happen to make that a part of what we were doing. At the same time, around the same time, I don't know exact dates, there were talks about changing the social studies standards, the social studies graduation requirements for Minneapolis public schools. I should say Minneapolis public schools was interested in adjusting their graduation standards to increase graduation rates. At that time, social studies was in Minneapolis, you had to have 4 full years to graduate from high school. The state only required 3.5 years. And so the idea was the social studies requirement would be reduced, and so thereby increase graduation rates. The idea was formulated at that point to create a multicultural or history cultural class to go into that new open semester to fill in the gap, and that was floated around at some various stakeholders, and it evolved to eventually be the idea of African American history due to this baby doll situation at Washburn, and that was floated around like stakeholders on both sides of the racial lines, or many sides of the racial lines, and it did not go through. It was promised that that would become a part of the graduation requirements in the next graduation requirements review or iteration in 2020. So upcoming, as you know. So then it was kind of like, oh, we should be thinking about this, talking about this. But my then supervisor was a guy named Mike Lynch, and he never directed or encouraged. I shouldn't say encouraged. He never. I never was told to be that an official part of my work. What kind of turned the tide was that we had a new deputy CAO, Dr. Kimberly Mature. You met her before, Matir, and she came along, and myself and Laurencina Ormalu, who was the director of Equity University in the Office of Equity University. Her executive director was James Burrows. She and I had been working together on various other projects dealing with Equity University. And so she and I went to Dr. Kimberly Matir, to talk to her about this idea of having a African American history course in this kind of open semester that would be offered for high school students at Minnesota schools. And so we approached her, and she said yes. She thinks that's a good idea. She thinks that's what happened. And so she directed my supervisor, Mike Lynch, to kind of direct me to make it. So then, the floodgates opened, and that's when I was able to work more closely with Laurencina, with James, and then eventually form a coalition, which included you and Dr. Nishi, and eventually Courtney Bell, and a host of other community, I think John Hamilton, a couple other community members. I don't remember all the names. If I need to, I can probably look that stuff up. All the names of the people that were interested in being a part of kind of this first goal. You may recall our goal was to create a series of courses, first being African American, and then was Latino, and then other ones, ethnic bodies. Subsequent to that, I was definitely a part of the African American one, and that first year of drafting it. I'm helping to be a part of the team that contributed to the drafting of it. You drafted it. And then also helping with the implementation, the rollout of that in various classrooms the next year after that. Then the social studies, the curriculum, the teaching and learning department was then, I don't want to say dissolved, but they were the jobs were changed. And for instance, the content lead position. So my position as content lead and all the other content lead positions were dissolved and changed into a different position, which I didn't apply for, and I was no longer a part of it. My successor, Mr. Kebler Ortiz, continued with the process and started. The next one on the line was Latino history. And that process, I believe, did conclude and was implemented. I'm looking on the social studies department site now. There's a new woman named Lisa Purcell, which I don't know. K-12 social studies district program facilitator, and it looks like they do have still are offering the ethnic studies courses. And here they are, and these are probably their course names. And so like it looks like they introduced some more history of Hmong, in addition to Asian history, intro to ethnic studies for middle school, and social studies, Somali studies coming up. So look like they continued the work, and it would be interesting to see how how it's being implemented and that kind of thing. So that's kind of just a brief history of what happened. It was a coalition between the Social Studies Department, at the behest of Dr. Kimberly McTeer, who was the deputy CAO, via Mike Lynch, who was the executive director of teaching and learning. And then more importantly, more central, was the Office of Equity and Diversity, which was headed by the ED was Mr. James Burrell, and then then the director was Lawrencina Oromalu. So Lawrencina and I kind of converged and had some synergy around making this happen. Subsequently, that office was dissolved, and then my position was dissolved. So, if you want more contemporary or more information about how things are happening now, then I would suggest maybe reaching out to this woman who I've never met before. So hopefully this will get you started. You can definitely ask me more questions. Hope to see you soon. Goodbye.